Hello everybody, welcome to the second episode of the Angry Sun Zone. My name is Santo.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Sean.
And today we have a special guest in the room, Kona. Why don't you say hello, Kona?
She's not one to bark or bite, but she's definitely a regular in our podcast adventures.
Yeah.
She's a Shih Tzu Yorkie Poodle, and she is the official mascot of the Angry Sun Zone.
So, if you hear any smacking around in the background, that's probably going to be her.
Yes, all technical errors are the fault of the dog.
So...
Okay. It's time to put the bag out of reach.
Out of reach of a dog? Is that possible?
Yes it is. Out of this dog.
Yeah, small dogs.
Dude, what did you put in there? Another dog's butthole?
Treats. There's treats in the bag. Aww. All right.
Well, let's get down to business here.
It's time.
It's a serious podcast for serious business. So, listeners of the first episode might have remembered that we talked briefly about the how PlayStation, Sony is shutting down the PSN stores for the PS3, Vita, and PSP. They're not doing that anymore. They went back on that. For specifically the PS3 and the Vita, those stores will not be shutting down, but the PSP store still is, which just makes this seem like some kind of new Coke strategy, where we're closing everything down. Well, I guess we're going to listen to our fans here and not close everything down. We're still closing down the PSP.
I mean, to be fair, do you know anyone who bought a PSP?
Yeah. And you know what they did with their PSP? They put custom firmware on it so that they can fucking play pirated games on it. Because that's what everybody did with their PSP after a time. So
that's great.
Yeah, that's not necessarily the biggest loss, but because of that announcement, it popped up this cottage industry of YouTubers making videos about like the top 50 games that are going away for these closures. And I watched a few of those because I was curious.
That aren't going away.
Well, they're not going away anymore, but at the time, like, it was like, oh shit. And so something I hadn't really considered is that the main thing that would have actually gone away are all of the like PS1 and PS2 classics that they brought to those platforms, because they brought like a lot of PS1 and PS2 like JRPGs and shit to those stores, and they were really cheap. In fact, one video that I was watching listed the digital price of the thing and then like the eBay price for a physical, and a lot of those games are going for like $100-$200. Just these random ass PS1 RPGs. So I'm kicking myself for no longer knowing where my copy of Suikoden is.
Fair.
Yeah, it was interesting to see, because that kind of like it's kind of like a preservationist aspect to this whole thing.
Yeah, it's really important to be able to figure out the difference between the antiquers and the hoarders.
Yeah, and like a lot of these older games are gonna become pretty much unplayable except through emulation. So having this like last bastion of ways to maybe somehow get some portion of money to the people that made these games.
Well, it's not just that,
nice.
but like you're saying, it's even just the very act of playing them at all. It's interesting to think that it will become challenging to appreciate these sorts of works in the future. I mean, a painting doesn't like stop being a pretty thing to look at. I know they can degrade, okay, but
unless you mint an NFT and burn it in a fire.
Well, I mean,
anyway,
what you're talking about is like evolution of style and ability, like cave drawings as compared to Renaissance era paintings.
Okay, but Renaissance era paintings are still completely they're still there, right? Michelangelo's painting of the ceiling of that building,
The Sistine
in Italy,
Chapel?
the Sistine Chapel.
Man of culture. Man of culture.
Yes. Anyway, so that's still there, right? Whereas now we have games that are barely 20 years, 10, 15, I don't know. But depends on the game, I suppose. But, there's games that are, only decades old that are difficult to even play. And it's a very it's very intriguing. It's also frustrating too when it comes to things that you've paid for that become unplayable. This actually happened to me. I went to go play Pikmin 3 on my Wii U, and my Wii U apparently has a hardware issue with the onboard system, like flash memory now. And so when I try to access Pikmin 3, and it also happened to me in a specific subgame of Nintendo Land, it throws some sort of memory access error. And so literally the solid state drive in my Wii U is partially failed, and I can no longer play Pikmin 3, which is a game I downloaded digitally, paid full price for, and now what? I just can't play it anymore?
I mean, on perhaps an Xbox or Sony platform, you could just get somebody else's console and very easily play it by logging into your account and downloading it. With Nintendo, I don't know what your options are.
Yeah, Nintendo has always had very terrible internet store account integration.
Yeah, it's hard to keep it straight, but I think that did it start getting reasonable around the Wii U, or
it started getting
around the Switch.
It's just been getting. I mean, it's been getting incrementally better the whole time.
Yeah,
but the emphasis is on incremental.
Yeah, it's like,
hey, you know what? That's Kaizen, baby.
Is that a thing where if I gave you my Wii U, could you log into your Nintendo account on that Wii U?
I don't know. I've never tried it. I think maybe.
Yes.
Because there is, basically it has profiles which are associated to different Miis on the console.
Yeah.
And then you associate a Nintendo shop account to that profile.
Okay.
And I think I could associate my Nintendo shop account to a Mii profile on your console for hypothetically.
For some amount of time.
For some amount
to transfer it.
Yeah.
Like the PS3, you had to do that, where you had to transfer your home PS3 to somebody else's to do that shit. I remember.
Very possible.
Yeah. So
the layers of content protection.
If you really want to play fucking Pikmin 3, I'm sure one of us can give you our dust gathering Wii U's for a time.
Oh man. You know, the funny thing is that they re-released Pikmin 3 on the Switch, I think.
Oh yeah.
I guarantee that I can't, even if I had a Switch, I can't play it on that. They made people buy it again.
It's probably $80 on the Switch too.
It probably
the fucking Nintendo tax is so...
People are probably like, oh man, Pikmin 3 just got released.
It's so frustrating to me. I was looking through the Switch fucking eShop, and I've started swearing now, so I'm just gonna rant about this shit because it drives me up the goddamn wall. I hate the Nintendo tax. They charge for their products in a way that nobody else in the industry does. Everybody else puts games on sale after a point. Everybody else, when they re-release an HD version of the game on a different platform, it's at a reasonable price. Nintendo, no. You want Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Edition, which was a launch game for the Switch, still $80. You want Breath of the Wild, still $80. You want Skyrim Special Edition on the Wii, that's $80.
Hold on, weren't all of those games also on the Wii U? Maybe not Skyrim.
Skyrim, I don't think was, but the other two games, yes. And Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee, Pokemon Sword and Shield, those are still both $80.
Wait, did they remake? Oh yeah, they remade Let's Go Pikachu, didn't they?
Well, Let's Go Pikachu is like a pseudo remake of Gen 1.
What?
Yeah.
Let's Go Pikachu. Oh, I'm thinking of Hey Pikachu. on
You're
N64.
thinking, oh my god.
I'm thinking of the N64
You're thinking
game.
of Hey You Pikachu.
Hey You Pikachu. That game was honestly, it was a piece of crap, but it was amazing.
It was trying to use voice recognition technology on an N64.
Now, could you imagine some sort of AR experience? Hey You Pikachu? You know, or even VR?
I mean, they could probably implement some kind of like voice recognition shit into Pokemon Go.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
You just put on your goggles and then Kona turns into a Pikachu. Yeah.
The future.
Well, and you know
No,
that
Kona turns into a Houndoom.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh man.
yeah. Love it.
Yeah, dude, those microchips they put on the vet, you know, they're not to help you find your lost dog. They're to turn your dog into an AR Pokemon.
Oh yeah. It's the future.
It's where all that money's going from the Nintendo tax.
Yeah. And like, Smash at this point has been out for quite a while, and
Smash is never getting.
Smash is never
discount.
going down in price, and because there's enough DLC for it, I don't remember how much each of those fighter passes are, but for me to get all the content in Smash at this point in its release cycle, like, I'd have to spend like $130 or something like that. It's like, if I could get all of that content for $60, I would pay. Currently, I will never pay. So they're losing out on sales as far as I'm concerned.
You know what? I almost think it could be a different, maybe even I'm going to say corporate culture, but it ties directly to culture. Because, like, I have a feeling that the concept of discounts in Japan for items that are considered, like, tradecraft, for example, things like a samurai sword. You know, if you're getting a samurai sword built, you'd never see it go. You'd never see it go for discount. You know, same with.
I mean, there was a time when haggling was a thing, so perhaps. But I can't haggle with an digital storefront. I wish I could.
What if you could though? What would that even look like?
Oh, dude! Actually, now that we mention it, that totally happened on for Nintendo, no less. There was I think it was a 3DS game called like Rocky's like Super All-Star Baseball or some shit like that, where like the price was variable.
Wait, what?
Fuck.
I thought that was a free to play. I remember hearing about that game, and I thought it was a weird free to play thing.
Yeah, God. Now I gotta look this shit up. Fact checking.
All right, hit us up, fam. How would you haggle on an internet storefront? Tell us in the comments that may or may not exist.
It's either that or we bring back the barter system. Alright, I've got these shelves, but I want virtual shelves in Animal Crossing. How do we do this?
Man,
Alright.
there are some large opportunities for like one-to-one arbitrage there. Just like, yeah, you sell me this physical, you give me physical objects, I give you the digital version in Animal Crossing. That's it.
All right,
That's the business model.
Here's how it works. So your price has a slider bar, and you know what? You got to unlock the ability to slide it larger and larger in either direction. So the more products that you purchase, the more products that you review, the larger your slider bar gets to either direction.
Okay, here was Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. One of the bullet points, literal bullet point on this thing, on the Nintendo website for this game is haggle with Rusty Slugger to lower the real life price of each minigame. So you're haggling in game to try to lower the actual eShop purchase price of each minigame.
Oh god.
That is bolded in the text description.
That is some clever oddball scenario that's happening there.
You know what's funny, actually, talking about this, I'm actually reminded of some of the Humble Bundle stuff lately.
Right.
They have a bit of an interesting sales mechanic where, traditionally, the Humble Bundle was a pay-what-you-want group of usually indie games where you could get tons of games for a super cheap price. I have
never play any of them.
I have hundreds of games I've never played because of the Humble Bundles over the years. And but some of the more recent ones have an interesting mechanic where you have to pay a certain threshold to unlock more games in the Humble Bundle pack. And it's kind of interesting because it's sort of like haggling in a way, I suppose, with a storefront. Kind of.
Yeah, well, those thresholds are based
and they're
sometimes off of like the average that people are spending and shit.
Yeah, like one of the some of the thresholds are not based off of like a initial thing that the devs set. Yeah, it's based
Sometimes
on like
they are.
Sometimes they are, but it's also like beat the average price to unlock this game, which of course means that over time that goes up.
Yeah, a little bit at a time.
Yeah, every time someone purchases the bundle, then the average price. Every time someone purchases the bundle to unlock that game, the average is going to go up.
Yes, by 1 cent divided by the amount of people that have already bought the bundle.
Yeah, but hey, that adds up, right?
I can't imagine that would add up to anything substantial.
If there's a notable game in the bundle that you have to beat
One
the average
penny.
to unlock,
1 penny per. Like, no, that's not gonna. I would be shocked if that increased at all.
I mean,
I'd be
it has to
interested see.
increase. Otherwise, people would. The averages on some of them can be quite high. Like I was looking at one the other day, the average was like $13.
Yeah, so for that to be the case, then 1,300 people would have to buy that and for a penny more to raise the price by a penny. I think I got my math right on that.
I mean, we're not talking about any particular bundle here, so who knows what the math is?
That is some interesting thoughts. How we've evolved where you can actually have, in a marketplace, you can have a dynamic, living system where the participants in that market are, in real time affecting each other. It's not like, this where you go to the grocery store and, the price of the papaya magically flashes, up or down depending on how many other people are currently buying papayas in other stores kind of thing. So
I mean, they do kind of do that, but it's not instantaneous. It's like why cauliflower spikes to like $15 a head sometimes. That happened once. Like once.
I've seen some
better.
hardware parts in the hardware store that from $17 to $257.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, lumber went crazy. Some electrical stuff went crazy too. Copper wire is going for about double what it was last year or more, depending on the type. Crazy.
Yeah. And of course, with video games, depending on whether you're a console or a PC player, you might be having troubles trying to find a video card or a PS5.
Yep. Supply chain all the way down.
Yeah. It's shipping crates all the way down, and hopefully your PS5 is not sitting on a giant cargo ship in the middle of the Suez Canal.
No, I'm just stockpiling it in the shipping crate in my backyard.
Maybe it's time to sell that shipping crate. Earn some fat stacks of cash.
No, I'm going to be in an apartment soon, so that's not much bigger than a shipping crate, so...
Funny how
upgrade your apartment now by installing a shipping crate.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure there's some way for me to turn my balcony into a shipping crate.
There must.
I'm only on the 3rd floor. That can't be that hard.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Just a freestanding fucking shipping crate instead of a balcony.
Whatever. As long as the center of gravity is like on the balcony, it's okay, right?
No, I'm not talking about on the balcony. I'm talking about is the balcony.
What balcony? How is balcony?
Where is balcony?
Balcony.
Balcony
Okay.
sounds like a French town.
Balcony is rapidly becoming a word that I can't hear anymore.
How so?
Well, sometimes you ever have that sometimes where there's a conversation where somebody's just saying one word so many times that by the end of the conversation it sounds different than when you started the conversation.
You start questioning whether that group of sounds actually means anything at all.
Yeah. Like balcony. Like now it's like there's a big separation between the bal and the coney for me right now. And I can't parse it.
Yeah, it could be a mobster. You know, like, oh man, I saw Balcone in the restaurant last week. He fucking gave me an icy cold stare. I tell you what.
Yeah. It was concrete boots for talking.
Steel rails for walking.
So, Sean, you were showing us a bit earlier. You play a lot of Noita recently, and you were showing us that it has like streamer features and shit.
Yeah, it does have streamer features. So Noita has the ability to be modded, and there's tons of mods on the workshop. And so Noita, the concept is it's a side-scrolling game. Let's back up and talk about this game a little bit before I dive into that.
Because you were streaming it until 5:30 a.m. last
Yes,
night, so
burning the midnight oil. So Noita is a game a little bit along the lines of Terraria. It's side-scrolling, like a Super Mario, some of the old-school games. And it's got pixel art. And one of the amazing things about this game is that these pixels are in their own fully rendered universe. They have their own physics. They interact with each other. And they really create a brand new world.
try to be any more subtle with that can of bubbly Alex.
And so...
It's lime flavor.
Delicious. So...
Speaking of limestone.
Yes. So, in Noita, the concept is you're essentially going as far down as you can. Now, a lot of roguelikes tend to be like this, whether it's classic ones whose names all escape me at this time.
NetHack.
Rogue.
Yep, NetHack.
Rogue. The thing,
Rogue.
thing that everything now is like.
Oh, yes.
And so the concept is very similar. And there's a few other unique features that make it special. But at the end of the day, Noita is a Finnish game. Noita meaning witch, and witch is the main character. That's you. And so you have, as your tools, you have the ability to not only jump, but to fly in the air for a limited amount of time. You...
Sorry, can we just back up? Why does the game being made by people from Finland matter exactly?
Because all the enemy names are in Finnish, and when you read them, you will look at it and scry into it and go, what does it mean? I have no idea. There's no description or anything like that in this game of, any flavor text or lore that is directly available or translatable, because you actually pick up tablets in the game occasionally that talk about some of these things and slowly let you uncover it. And there's no menu option for it. You literally just have to find it and read it and stare at it.
Is it an early access game, or is it a finished game?
It is a finished game.
Can you finish this finished game?
It is very difficult to finish. I've been to online on some of the communities out there for Noita, and there's some people who have played the game 400 times and won it only 10. And so, as it turns out, there's also, even after you beat it, there's New Game Plus. And in New Game Plus, not only does the game get harder, but you also unlock some things that are not available in regular game. And so it's quite deep. It's very fun. Now, one of the things that you'll find is that when you're playing it, not only are the enemies quite deadly, even from the lowliest little spider. And by the way, for those arachnophobes, this game is creepy. The spiders are creepy. You'll be zipping through the dungeons at high speeds away from these spiders. They're great.
Not only that, but there's that one like mutation power thingy that you found that turned you basically into a spider.
Yes,
that was awesome.
So,
That's one of the coolest mobility mechanics I've ever seen in a game.
Yeah, totally.
For those wishing to avoid spoilers about Noita, there's no story to be spoiled, but if you like the details of the game to be preserved, heads up for those people.
Yeah, it's a roguelike discovery of what's in there is kind of part of the thing.
Now, as in any typical fantasy themed game, there's wands. Wands are a huge part of this game, and the mechanics behind wands are quite deep. It's actually a little bit like programming, because each aspect of the wand can be reconfigured once you clear a level. And one of the main mechanics is searching for wands, searching for components for wands, and then mashing them up into what can be described as... You might start with a basic one that shoots, maybe like a magical bolt out, or a magic missile, and if you strip it down to its base elements, scry into the other wands that you have and think about how you can slap these babies together, you can take something that looks like an old, rusty old wand and turn it into a shiny, brand new wand that will spit fire enough that you'll get views on YouTube for it. So, it's pretty fun. Now, on to the streamer side of things. So, Noita has a very strong community. I find that the developers actually pay attention to the community and interact with them a lot. And they offer mod support and streamer support. And that streamer support is employed through a mod. You actually have to... there's a little bit of a process involved, and it's not plug and play. But once you get it set up, you as a streamer have the ability to let your users vote to have an effect on your game while it's happening live. And so that can be anything from great events, like they can drop you a rare item, to wild events, like spawning a horde of enemies around you, or causing, actually morphing entire parts of the world, and polymorphing an entire substance from one thing to the other. So if you have a kind audience, perhaps they'll convert all the lava in your levels into water. And if you have a terrible audience, then they might...
Oh, Sean, you're just gonna go pick up this water to put out the fire? And, oh no!
The water is gasoline!
Water is gasoline!
Yeah, and
now the water's beer and you're drunk!
Yep, and now some of the other interesting mechanics about this game is it's one of the few games where you'll encounter... a variety of different substances that you can ingest. Now, you can ingest pretty much about anything, and the effects are quite realistic, whether you're consuming grass on the ground, which gives you actually bad gas, ironically.
That checks out, actually. That's what eating grass would do.
Yeah, and a lot of the interactions are quite realistic in there. So what's cool? Another cool mechanic is alchemy, so you can pick up potions and various stones, and other artifacts, but usually you'll find this out by accident, but at some point when you're wandering through, you'll discover that one potion, when you mix it with another potion, and sometimes you actually have to stand in it and swirl it around in order for this to happen, it will create a new substance out of that.
I just really like that visual, like your character's just taking bottles, dumping them on the ground, walking around, stomping in it, and then bam.
Yeah.
Now it's the new potion.
And one of the most frequent events that you'll find in this game is actually that you are on fire. being on fire is a common event. It can happen for a little while, and you've got a good number of seconds to figure out, as your life is flashing before your eyes, how to deal with this very serious problem. Now, at first, you'll usually be craving for some sort of source of water, and you'll probably jump into the nearest puddle that you can find. You'll discover that puddles aren't just water.
Puddles of gasoline.
There can be puddles of gasoline indeed. And in fact, in this game it's actually oil. Now the interesting thing is, just like in real life, if you were on fire and you jumped into a big enough vat of oil, it would actually put the fire out before the oil catches on fire. And just like that, in this game, if you jump into a deep enough vat of oil while you're on fire, it'll just put the oil out. So there's lots of little interactions that you can...
Would the oil then also catch fire, though?
Not unless it's shallow enough. A very shallow or narrow pool of oil can be superheated when you jump in it, and then it will catch on fire, but big ones usually don't. And then, as you go along, you'll start to notice other things like, oh, I didn't know that I can drink potions. It takes a while to figure out how to do that, unless you read about it. But usually you figure out how to
let's do it here.
So in order to drink a potion, you would right-click it. Now, some potions have different effects depending whether you're soaked in the liquid or you've drank in it. For example, whiskey. Whiskey, if you're soaked in it and your robes are awash in whiskey, you're likely to just catch on fire even easier. And if you're drunk, you'll find that whiskey is a quite powerful thing. It'll get your character inebriated so fast you won't know what's happening because your aim is completely off every time. You just need it to be good. It actually skews your aim in hilarious ways. And I don't mean that the pointer. So you have an aiming pointer on the screen as to where you're aiming, and comically, when you're drunk and you're in combat, you tend to flail your arms a lot, and so the actual pointer will just whip around wildly, and you'll find it's great. They put so much effort into this game. But yeah, I would say that one of the things that you'll end up finding, and this was actually commented on the online community, on our subreddit, is they find that every time a new update is released, they add even more content. And whenever they do this, the other interesting thing is that they don't actually document it. Like, there is an official wiki, but it's up to the community to find this content and figure out how it works. But after they do, and it gets onto some sort of wiki or whatnot, the developers in the next update will then actually provide in-game elements that teach you how to use it even more. It's quite interesting. Okay. Yeah.
That's actually kind of a cool...
Yeah, that's a really cool thing to do for a roguelike.
That's a lot of involvement from the devs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and some of them are, for example, puzzles. There will be various rooms that you run into that are procedurally generated, and so they don't appear all the time. And they might have an environmental puzzle, and then all of a sudden it turns almost into games like, I'm trying to think of environmental puzzle games. I don't play many of them, so I don't have many on tap. But if I were to say, sometimes it's actually like navigating through a space, a little bit like Prince of Persia. Other times it's like Metroid Prime, where you just need to find the right kind of item in order to move on to the next area. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's an actual puzzle where you have to electrocute. So that's another thing, is any of the elements are great when they're in a wand. Like, you can have a firebolt wand, and it'll be this tremendous ball of fire that destroys the enemies that usually horrify you, or you'll have an electric wand. But what you'll find is that the more powerful the weapon, some of the weapons actually feel scary. And this is not too often that you find this in a video game, where you're holding a weapon, and it's powerful, and most of the time in a game, say like Halo, when you pick up the rocket launcher or the sniper rifle, you feel great. In Noita, if you pick up an especially powerful weapon, like, say, for example, one of the electric items, you'll actually usually just die by your own hand, because it's very easy to actually kill yourself. And, for example, you might be standing on a steel floor, and the electric attack hits the floor, electrifies the floor, and kills you and all the enemies that were standing on the platform along with you. So when you find out these elements, you've got a game where you can, by figuring out how the elements interact, you can actually slowly learn new ways to make yourself more lethal and also to survive longer, because death is permanent like any other roguelike. Once you die, you're sent to a new world. Yeah, so that's in a nutshell. I'm a huge fan of Noita, and you might hear me muse about various aspects of this game as me and my friends go deeper and deeper into it in the late of the night.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's interesting, just backtracking a bit, the streaming functionality you were talking about. I really like the concept of like a game where the people, the viewers of the stream can actually interact with the game environment, and then by extension interact with the player who's streaming. Really cool concept. I'd love to see a game that's just like based around that, like from the ground up. Is there a game like that?
So, okay. So there was this, like, really crazy game project that was called I Drew a Red Box, or IDARB, where, I forget, God, this is going to drive me crazy, I forget who started this, but he basically, like, asked people, okay, I drew a red box, I'm making a game, what should this game be? And they took as many audience suggestions as they could to try to influence this game's design. And where they ended up was like kind of a couch competitive sports game where users could use Twitter to influence how the game played out.
What?
Where they could use there were specific Twitter hashtags that they could use in conjunction with like a game ID to just like have all these crazy shit happen in this game. And that's how like a lot of the audience suggestions ended up becoming part of the game design, was just like, if you do this crazy hashtag, there might be like a black hole that comes up, or there might be this dude's face just like appear like semi-transparent on the screen for a while, and just like random shit like that. And it was this really crazy like high concept game example that happened.
I like it. No,
I like it too. That
that's
sounds really cool.
That's the thing. I've played enough games that I'm all about that weird
shit.
That weird shit. Yeah, but yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, I think part of the challenge that we don't see more games with like really interesting streaming functionality. Partly it's just new. That's certainly part of it. But then also, if you were to build a game around it, you're going to be limited to either weird experimental stuff like that that doesn't necessarily require tons of dev time and resources in the game development. Because, you know, face it, if you build a game that's designed to be, you know, Twitch streamer versus his audience, only the streamer buys the game. And that's a very limited market to sell a game. And so I think the only way you'd see it is like kind of experimental stuff, or if some sort of wealthy patron decided to fund the development of such a game, like on their own.
I mean, you could always require it so that everybody that wanted to interact with the streamer might have to buy the game as well, or buy this like limited, like maybe cheaper, like access key to the game. Or whatever.
Buy viewer mode.
Or instead of buying access keys, perhaps they could buy NFTs minted by the game's creator.
Oh, God. Not everything has to be NFTs.
I would argue that nothing has to be NFTs.
Oh boy.
One thing though is that like you could, in theory, design a game that has that kind of like streamer with audience interaction concept to it, but because not everybody has an audience for that, you could maybe like try to craft some kind of like fake audience engine to try and interact with that.
You could have it be kind of like a traditional matchmaking system where it's just like you do matchmaking, but you will only have a small chance of being the streamer person, so to speak. Like that person's role, whatever it is.
Right. But I was thinking more like, well, what I'm suggesting is basically like taking the like AI director concept that's in a lot of games and just like surfacing that to the player.
I see. Yeah.
It's
yeah,
like,
sort of like
just
like play against the AI horde if you don't have your own horde of fans.
Or like a lot of those online, the IO series of games, where it'd be like itch.io or so a lot of those games, the premise involved you'd be playing some match, and there's the one that I had played at one point was you played a hole in the ground, and you would need to suck up objects that were large, small enough to fit inside your hole, and then you keep growing and growing until you're bigger. And so long as you're bigger than another hole, if you two collide, they'll fall into your hole, and then you'll absorb their size and get even bigger. And so the object of this was to eat the entire level up, and be the largest hole and the last man standing. Now, what was interesting is that I had a lot of fun on that game. At times, I would find it challenging. And then I started noticing strange things about it.
Well, that I remember. Yeah, I know. I think I know where you're going with this. It was a large controversy.
Yeah, and so you'd see the same players popping up over and over again. You'd see players doing certain maneuvers, and they'd seem to do them a lot. And soon, that game faded into my memory until one day I read an article that, lo and behold, the entire time I'd actually been playing mostly with bots. Like, there's pretty much only offline mode in almost all versions of the game that are floating out there on the internet. There's very few that have a live matchmaking mode. Now, you can still play with your friends.
The craziest thing about the whole like IO game scandal thing to me is that apparently the originator, the actual original game, I can't remember what type of game it was, but the original game that it was based on was actually legit and had real online matchmaking, and then it was a bunch of copycat games that moved in with the shitty, mostly only making you play against AI stuff.
Yeah.
And it completely crowded out like the original, like, inspiration.
Yeah.
And it's very sad, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's a cool concept, but yeah, the
Agar.io.
What
you're probably thinking
Agar, yeah.
Yeah, because like
I always think of it as Agario.
Yeah, like the .io extension, like browser, domain, whatever, just it seems to be used a lot for just like weird web apps, and itch.io, which is a weird web app that sells you weird games.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they were definitely filled with unconventional indie games. Here's another thing about games that is strange. Have you seen those ads on YouTube? You know the ad where it'll be some sort of game scenario.
No, I don't. I've ad block, bro.
What? YouTube has ads?
For those
Are
of
you
you
sure?
who don't have an ad-free YouTube experience.
I haven't seen YouTube ads in a long time.
It'll usually be showing some sort of puzzle, and the whole thing is, you see a ridiculous puzzle, usually it's some sort of screen where the objective is to get some treasure, and there's a person and some sort of dangerous thing like lava or whatever, and there's a bunch of keys, and one by one these keys are pulled out, it always goes terribly wrong. Because in the ad, they never do it right, and you look at it and you're like, they're such an idiot. And of course, that's the hook that they try and use to get you to play this game. But in reality, the hilarious truth is that none of the games that are advertised to have that kind of gameplay actually have that kind of gameplay at all.
That's a pretty common trend in mobile game ads.
Yeah. By the way, for anyone who has seen these ads, please install a YouTube ad blocker.
The whole ad blocking thing is like a kind of a separate conversation where, in theory, like we shouldn't actually be using ad blockers because those negatively impact creators that are trying to make money through ads. But on the other hand, so many places implement like video ads so terribly that I'm just like, fuck that shit. I'm gonna use an ad blocker because I don't want a 30-second ad preceding a 12-second video.
Yep. It can be bad.
Yeah. If ads weren't so awful and terribly designed, then maybe it wouldn't be so bad. But as it stands, I definitely use an ad blocker.
Definitely.
Fuck, what game? You know what game I think would probably be in my top games that I don't think would be on either of yours? Fucking Blast Core.
I've heard you talk about Blast Core.
That game, I was thinking about it the other day. There's no other game like it. It's like you can't even place it in a genre.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much its own weird ass thing that it executes its own concept really well, especially for the era. It is an N64 game, and it's certainly lacking polish compared to some things nowadays, but I can't say there's really been anything else like it, and I'm still so disappointed that once Microsoft bought Rare, they never released another version of that, or a sequel, or anything. Nothing's been done with it. Like, one game, no sequel, no remake, no copycats. What the hell happened? Some days I think, like, should I just, like, make a weird spiritual successor game to it because no one else will?
I'm just recapping on what this game is and how it works, and it definitely looks pretty interesting.
It's like, okay, so yeah, I don't know how far we want to go into it now, but it's like, in terms of its controls, when you're driving a vehicle, it's kind of like a racing game, unless you're driving a bulldozer. In which case, it's not really like a racing game. But then there's also giant mechs, which is like kind of mech controls and like jumping.
So
what
what I'm hearing is that there is a market for a mech racing game. These lumbering walking tanks that look like they're gonna fall over any goddamn minute, but you gotta make that turn.
Mech Warrior Mad Max Edition.
Mech Racer.
Yeah. Well, the important thing is that the main concept of the game is that it's really about demolition and demolishing buildings, because it's basically, what was that movie with the bus that can't go under 40 miles? Speed? Yeah. Okay, so it's basically Speed, but with a nuclear bomb. And there's a nuclear bomb truck, and if it stops, it explodes. And the nuke goes off. And so you need to blow up everything in the path so that it doesn't crash. Whoever came up with that concept...
Watch Speed.
Like... Yeah, I guess
you know what?
They probably went to a drive-in that was a double feature of Speed and Demolition Man, and they were just like, wait a second.
Imagine this game with like on a modern console with modern graphics,
with modern physics.
Yeah, I mean, you could do some weird shit. Also, I think you could probably integrate some like fully destructible terrain stuff that I always love. Any game with fully destructible anything, I'm 100% on board.
Get that shell and Frostbite.
Sounds like Noita would be a great candidate for you.
Oh man, it's got the nukes.
Yeah.
It's got the physics.
It's got
all it needs is a vehicle.
Minecarts can be vehicles.
There we go. We're gonna mod this in a Noita.
one person would.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a bunch of very complicated math and statistics we could do to this, but frankly, I have more important problems to use advanced mathematical and statistical techniques on.
Name one.
The tissue modeling.
Tissue model.
I got your tissue modeling right here.
Give me one of
Scotty's original
No, I'll be
two-ply.
I'll be a tissue model.
126
That's gross, dude.
tissues.
When have you ever seen... That's... Okay, actually, never mind. They totally do have fucking ads where people are
No,
using the
but
tissues.
the only tissue ad that I remember is animated.
Charmin Ultra, less is more.
Like,
No, that's toilet paper.
And hey, those are bears. Bears use that toilet paper.
Bears get
not
paid.
humans.
Bears get paid.
What do the bears get paid in?
Picnic baskets.
And honey.
And honey and picnic baskets.
The only one that tissue commercial I remember was animated. It looks like fucking DreamWorks did that shit, and it's just like, oh, this Kleenex has lotion, so it's like very gentle on the nose, and every time I've used Kleenex with lotion, it makes me want to die.
I don't like them either.
I would rather blow my nose raw than to use ones with lotion. Ugh.
I would rather take a lotion bottle and squeeze it up my nose. And then blow it out into the tissue.
No, just fill a neti pot full of lotion.
Oh my...
Or lube. You just get those pathways running, man.
Okay.
Oh.
Fill your nose with lube so that the snot will come out more easily. I see no way this could go wrong.
Hey, what's more likely to have brain-eating amoebas in it? Lube or tap water?
He's got a point.
That's a great question, actually. I don't know.
I've heard of
I think it
I've heard of that happening with tap water.
I think it depends if the lotion has just been opened or if it's been sitting for a while open. You don't know how many amoebas there are, airborne amoebas, that are getting into the lotion or something. That could happen.
Yes, I guess that could happen.
You know, your lotion's just sitting there one day, la da da, I'm a lotion, and then suddenly an amoeba gets in and starts eating the lotion. And this is definitely a plausible scenario. The look on your face tells me you're not buying it.
No. I'm not.
This is so funny.
Listen, the bacteria eats the lotion, the amoeba eats the bacteria, and then the amoeba eats your brain when you put the lotion in your nose.
Well, shouldn't the amoeba be full from eating the bacteria? It's fucking...
It puts the lotion on the skin.
I'll kiss the hose again. Hosing straight up into your sinus cavity. And that's gonna do it for the second episode of the Angry Sun Zone.
Yeah, we had a real great conversation tonight. I hope you all enjoyed it.
It's been wild, guys. I can't wait for the next episode.
Found wherever fine podcasts are available for free.
Just please make sure that you ethically source the podcast and
Make sure it's grass-fed.
yeah,
Free range. We want those microphones running around free.
yeah. Make sure your copy was slaughtered humanely as well.
What the? That's it. We're done.
We are done indeed.